What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of the Do It for a Living podcast. I'm Kevin. Today we've got a guest with us that I've known for quite a while. His name is Kevin Emmer. He owns a business called E-Muscle Cars, and you can guess by the name of the company of what he actually does. And so I'll let him explain what the company is and his background and how he got involved, and we'll kind of learn about the business that he's in. So, Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
So, Kevin, tell us your background. Like, how did you get involved in cars? What's your education, training, that sort of stuff?
So we'll take it way back. I've been in love with cars probably my whole life. Neither one of my parents were car people, but I got the bug or the knack, and from I think the age of 14, 15, I was buying cars, flipping them, restoring them, fixing them up, and save up, get a cooler sports, buy a car, save up, get a nicer sports car, sell it, fix it up, get it until I could, kind of have the car of my dreams. And so I got into cars really in the 90s. I fell in with rotary engine cars. They were kind of different and quirky than regular gas cars, and been working on cars ever since. Still have a few RX-7s laying around. And so that was kind of the genesis of my automotive passion, is just getting into newer technology and kind of off-the-wall cars. And always wanted to race cars. So in college, that's where I met you. We were both on the Formula SAE team at UT Arlington. I always kind of stayed behind the scenes on the powertrain side. Turbo calculations, rebuilding motors and such, a little bit of frame design and welding, but tried to leave that to the guys who were better at it than I. And then after college, started racing cars as a hobby, just in the kind of SCCA, NASA, sports car racing, Miatas, Corvettes and such.
What did you finish your degree in?
Mechanical engineering, and then started a master's at UNT, had plans to and finish the master's at UNT, but started working in the electrical industry pretty much immediately after that, and really haven't looked back since. I somewhat regret not doing the whole master's, but I think at this day and age, if I was to look back, I think an MBA or a management, engineering management would have probably benefited me a little more than a technical aspect.
Yeah, you're the same boat as I finished my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then I was at UTA with you doing my master's, and I did not finish. And I never really saw any value in it, other than Lockheed at the time paid for it. So it's like covered. So I was like, well, might as well. I got nothing else to do. And then it turned out I did have other stuff to do. But
yeah, well, for sure. I really, my professional experience, I think, trumped anything I would have gotten out of the technical side of things, because what my expertise is in now, or was as a professional engineer right before I started this automotive business, was really in mechanical design of electronics, which there's not a lot of specification on in school. You're either mechanical or electrical, and I was a blend of both. Also, my specialty was design for manufacturing and design for assembly, which also they don't teach you too much of in school. It's really, that's kind of hands-on in the workplace, accumulated knowledge, especially the design for manufacturing. So I had a really strong manufacturing background for my first few jobs, and that kind of just snowballed into being the assembly and manufacturing guru for, sensors company, electronics company, just how things go together, how things work. Travel to the factory in Europe, Mexico, China, train the guys up, teach them how to build the products the right way. I got my Six Sigma green belt and started black belt for manufacturing and lean manufacturing, which I actually started that at aircraft manufacturer I guess at night in college at UTA. I was working at Vought Aircraft on the Black Hawk helicopter project, but redesigning how to build it, not the product itself.
Sure. How
to build it more efficiently. And so I just kind of took that and went with enrolled with it. And I found a nice niche in the electronics manufacturing industry. Not a lot of people have that mechanical background or that efficiency-based, think outside the box type mentality. Okay. And and that really benefited me quite a bit. Any job really came easily in that industry because they're always looking for that guy. That guy can bridge the gap from design to manufacturing, and do it. You've worked in the industry before, your automotive business. Cost is always a big factor in design, way more than they ever teach you in school.
Right.
It's
like the driving factor for everything.
Like the number one cost. Yeah, the number one factor of development and design. So that's you're given a goal. If you can't sell that price, you're not going to make a profit, and not a good product. So I was able to kind of make that gap between the design and doing it more efficiently and thinking outside the box to get costs down, and then actually making it manufacturable. So anyways, that's my background in education is mechanical engineering and electronics design. Mm-hmm. And then my passion and weekend passion has always been building, restoring racing cars.
Okay. So bring us into, you've been working in manufacturing basically your entire professional career. Mm-hmm. And so how did you get started with eMuscle Cars? So
I got a random phone call from a previous colleague and employer who had recently retired or sold a chunk of the business and made a few bucks, and had a weird proposal to me. And he said, "Hey, you're an electrical design engineer, and you're also a car guy who builds and races cars. I got a crazy idea." In fact, that's his exact terms. He was, "I got a crazy idea." And I said, "All right, spit it out." And he said, "Well, I've got my dream car, bought it from Mecum or Barrett Jackson, 1968 Camaro, but my wife won't ride in it because it breaks down every time we drive it. And it's beautiful, immaculate, all original, like 40,000 mile car. But I got my mechanic on speed dial on one number and my tow truck driver on the other, just because it's unreliable, and I'm a car guy, but I'm not a gearhead, and I'm not a wrencher. So it's beautiful, but it's not that fun to own. Anyway, we could take the body off of this Camaro and drop it onto a Tesla or a Porsche SUV, Porsche EV." And I said, "Well, technically you probably could, but it'd be a box of bolts and kind of a Frankenstein vehicle. However, you could re-engineer the motors and batteries and systems to better fit inside the Camaro. Then you still have a Camaro just with a aftermarket EV drivetrain and control system." And he said, "Okay, well, you think you could do it?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sure I could. It'd take me probably..." Gave him some numbers that I thought would be a go away number. Probably take me over a year or about a year, and then it costs quite a bit of money to do. Source the components, research it, pay for a little bit of my time. I kind of gave him a friendly number for that, but the time wise, I said it's going to take forever, and it'll be the one of one. It'll be you have a very unique car, but it's going to take us quite some time to do it and do it the right way and do it safely. And I think that's so. Anyways, my colleague said, "Okay, let's do it," and so I said, "All right."
Big enough go away number.
No, it wasn't. And I had just had a baby, or my wife had just had a baby, and I didn't have much free time, so she wasn't super psyched at the idea of me taking on that project. And then, if de facto, that guy told some of his buddies, and they told some of their buddies, and my phone started to ring, and his phone started to ring, and then we got contacted by, people that had in the media that had heard about what I was doing. And a lot of people were kind of intrigued that I was making a modern electric 1968 Camaro. And so I was featured in, the Dallas, Washington Post flew out and did a story on one of my builds.
Okay. And this is as a business or just kind of out of your garage?
This is as we're transitioning from project to startup business.
Okay.
So
the project was like shown somewhere like Facebook or forums or Reddit or something like
exactly.
that. Right?
So
Instagram.
and not even that really, more just word of mouth. And then we made a website and kind of filed for LLC, and we started the company. Got a bank account, got it going, and we got our tax ID number and federal employer number, and kind of got a business set up. And then we kept on going. We started doing it a little bit more professionally, and that's kind of when it really took off, and people really started calling us. And really the media has been excellent. We haven't done any advertising whatsoever. I don't even have a Facebook page. But I've been featured in the Washington Post, Dallas Morning News, Houston Chronicle, Austin Statesman, San Antonio Paper. I've been featured at SolidWorks World at their international convention. The CEO of the company drove one of my EVs into the convention onto the stage. We've been at SEMA a couple years now, 3 years, 2 years as exhibitors. We've won a lot of awards at EV conventions and technical conventions thus far. And it kind of snowballed quickly, and it's amazing how little we've put towards marketing or advertising, almost just because we haven't wanted to grow too fast. So we're really appreciative of all the media and publicity we've gotten thus far. We've been featured on videos of even international publications from The Economist came over from the UK, shot a video on what we're doing because it's kind of a niche market, in the green sector.
Yeah,
so,
and it's also something that is like for some is considered blasphemy, right? Like,
oh, of course.
So you have kind of like you're like an early adopter, first to market sort of thing, and
we get way more blasphemy hate mail than we do positive. But that's probably where we like to hang out. Car shows, even SEMA. You get the good old boys that run hot rod shops for their whole lives, and they're putting the biggest V8s in cars. Mm-hmm. And now we put the next biggest motor in a car, and it's there's a quote from Henry Ford. If I asked the people what they wanted, they'd said faster horses.
Right,
so
right.
you
never have a car, right?
Yeah. So we're not necessarily making a product for everybody. I'm a gas head. I race cars. I love I got gasoline in my veins. However, this is a challenge. It's a cool product. And I think as an engineer, you'll relate. You don't want to do anything that's not challenging because it's boring and
that's right.
It doesn't interest you. Engineers like to know how things work, like to take things apart, make things better, improve things, and I think that's kind of what we're doing here. Is we're taking apart older cars, we're making them better. You lose a little bit of the V8 rumble, but we're improving the drivability of cars by making them EVs, and we're reducing the maintenance. We're reducing the
you don't have to have
fatigue
your
of
mechanic
ownership.
on speed dial anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we're really taking all the maintenance out of the car. We're improving the drivability, the braking, the steering, the handling, and just really making the ease of ownership, improving the ease of ownership and the accessibility of classic car ownership. As you said, you don't have to be a mechanic or have your mechanic on speed dial. So we're opening up to not to stereotype at all, but older people that just have lost the energy to wrench on a car, or women that just didn't grow up in a car family or car scene. That we have a few customers like that, but they love classic cars, and so why can't they own something that they really love just because they don't know how to work on it, and neither does the shop, local mechanic shops, because you can't take it to the dealer, you can't take the old cars to the dealer either, like.
Yeah, they don't have mechanics that know how to tune a car.
Exactly.
Generally speaking, most of them don't.
Exactly.
There may be some old master mechanic with 45 years of experience that definitely knows how to tune a carb or adjust your distributor or whatever. But
yeah,
I would bet 95% of them don't have an idea. So
definitely. So and we picked a niche. So as you mentioned, my business is called eMuscle Cars, and it's not all we do. As you did a shop tour, we've got a Cadillac and Porsches that we do as well, and any car. I think we're about to do an MG for a customer in DC, hopefully. But our niche is kind of muscle cars, and we picked that because of parts availability and kind of the passion people feel for some of the old original Mustangs and Camaros and Corvettes and such.
Okay.
But parts availability is the biggest one because I can buy every part brand new from a 1967 to 69 Camaro out of a catalog, or 6 catalogs. And so we really didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into a company or project that we would have limited parts availability.
Yep.
So that's kind of why we started with muscle cars, and we'll probably branch out a little bit, as we organically grow. But right now our focus is kind of making bespoke EV conversions for muscle cars, but also packages and modular kits for other vehicles. So we can slightly tweak some of our designs and pop them in pretty much any vehicle. Any traditionally shaped and styled vehicle.
Okay, so I guess that gets right to the next point was the product you are manufacturing. And so just to be clear, so people know, this is like one of the few in-person interviews we've done on this podcast. So I'm here with Kevin, and he gave me a tour of his shop, as he mentioned. And so I've had the chance to see exactly what he does. And before I came here, I had the assumption that he was like an actual restoration shop that was just putting EV conversions into it. And I kind of got the impression that it was just kind of like, like by the seat of your pants EV conversions, I guess is the best way I can put it. But it is quite the opposite. It's very more, you're not doing the restorations here, essentially. I mean, there are cars here.
We definitely do some of the mechanical restorations. We don't do paint and body.
Right.
So we'll
which is generally associated with a restoration, right?
So. And we throw a new carpet. Like we'll weld in a floorboard. If there's a rusted floorboard, we'll cut it out and weld it in. And then we'll maybe Raptor line in the bottom of the car. But we in general, I don't do too much paint and body here, just because there's guys that are lifers that are excellent at that.
Yeah.
And my time and my guys' time is better spent designing the EV components and the mechanical components of the vehicle.
Yeah, and so that's what you're saying is the very first thing you showed me when we came in here is you are like an engineering firm. So you have people 3D scanning the bodies, the underbody of the car. You have a SolidWorks guy drawing the engine package, the mounting brackets, the suspension to work around, all the stuff you need to put in place. So you are engineering these. It is not just a...
We
you're not
definitely
just
sell
throwing something together, right?
That absolutely. So, word of warning: EVs are, and gas cars, and any product that is that could be they're dangerous. Cars have gasoline; they go fast. EVs have batteries. If you get in a wreck, there's issues. So we very much sell an engineered product. We design very safe, very well thought out battery systems and EV systems. Our wires are in raceways. They're the right kind of wire. They're double shielded and abrasion protected. We use all watertight fasteners and connectors. There's a lot, and even down to the washers we use, they're all very, very specific to the purpose that we use them for, mainly to prevent the electrical systems from seeing as much vibration as your average road car. The last thing you want to do is have a nut back off of a battery pack or something like that. And a lot of OEMs get around that by welding and making very, very high volume, high expensive battery packs. Well, we don't have that luxury. Our cars that we're using are from the 50s and 60s and such, and they're not designed at all to have batteries in them. So what we do is we 3D scan the vehicle in its entirety and design a kind of fit like a glove style battery pack that we squeeze as internal to the vehicle and as low as possible. We also protect that with energy absorbing foam and specialty dampeners on the battery packs and rubber and polyurethane mounts so the batteries are isolated from the chassis. I say it's a very engineered product versus a motor swap. We get that a lot. Hey, what's it going to cost me to drop in an electric motor? I'm like, well, not much, but the rest of it will cost a lot. Batteries, wiring, controls, battery management systems, wiring harnesses, high voltage wiring harnesses, vehicle control units, new gauges that are all modern, adjustable suspension to adjust the weight, and all sorts of accessories that are required to really make this run. When you get a car from, when we build a vehicle or sell a package, you're basically getting all the good guts out of a Tesla or modern EV, plus the cool old car, and then the engineering hours to make it all work together. Yep. So a lot of people see the cost of the components and they say, well, I can buy a used Tesla motor for $8,000. So what's
good luck making that work, right?
What does the EV conversion cost? 9 or 9 or 10? I'm like, I wish, but how much is a battery pack from a Tesla? $20,000, and then you've got to disassemble it and repackage it into a battery system, and that it will work for your vehicle. We tend to not use Tesla batteries because they're quite bulky, but it's a very safe battery, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Due to how they're fused internally.
But you do use the Tesla motors.
So we love Tesla motors because they're the biggest bang for your buck.
Okay.
They're not very big, and they put a lot of power out.
Okay.
So your average Tesla large drive unit puts about once we've tuned it, puts around 400 horsepower, 4 to 450. The performance version of the Tesla large drive unit, we can squeeze a little over 600 horsepower out of, up to think about 625 with a custom tune. And that is something it's nice now. Those motors have been reverse engineered, and the controls at least, so we can replace the control board with a third-party control board, and then have open access to the motor itself. Change every single parameter of the entire motor, which is really nice because prior to that, you're basically scaling a Tesla tune, which is based on a 5,000-pound car. So if you put it in a 2,000-pound car, you've got way too much torque down low, and you have very big problem controlling the traction of your car. Unless you got slicks or really wide tires, you're going to have quite a different experience than when you're driving a large Tesla.
Yeah, and you mentioned this in our walkthrough that when you take the Tesla motor and you take the BMS, which is, for those who don't know, a battery management system, and you're attaching it to a VMS, which is a vehicle management system, which is an AEM system. So AEM, for those of us who have done gasoline cars, used to make ECUs for gas cars, which they no longer do anymore, as far as I know.
I think
Holly
they have one
took it over.
But
And
maybe
I don't think you can get any of them anymore.
Okay.
You can still get the gauges and whatnot, and I know they still do the EV stuff, but I think Holly has dropped the gasoline. We'll have to look into that. I can check, but yeah. So I mean, like, you are literally making in the table next to us here. You have this is like a legitimate race harness. Like the guys that make race cars, like this is a Raychem. You got like all your motorsport fasteners on all, or the motorsport connectors on all the ends. It is like a legit race harness, and so that all gets thrown into the price of this, which is not cheap.
So we don't use any parts from anything from eBay, China, Amazon.
Yep.
Everything's as robust as we can get. High dollar units. Amphenol connectors, amp. Everything is watertight.
Yep.
Sealed, strain relieved. Booted and heat shrink connectors and wiring harnesses.
Yeah.
Everything is sometimes we even concentrically twist some of our wiring harnesses if it's got some flex or some movement to it.
Yeah.
We go. Our whole goal is to make this the most robust, maintenance-free car you can have, because I don't want to have a customer have to come back to us. It's the point of us building this nice and quality and robust of a vehicle is so they don't have to have the problems they had with the gas car.
Right.
If they're having maintenance on our car, then why would they convert it in the first place?
Sure.
Well, the performance, for sure. The instant torque, you're getting 3,000 to 4,000 foot-pounds of torque at the wheels,
Right.
At all times through the EV. So the performance is unbelievable. Anyone who's driven a performance Tesla or a performance
pretty
electric
much
vehicle.
all EVs, other than you got
Leaf
like
or something.
Yeah, Leaf or the I think even like the new Toyota's pretty gutless too.
Yeah.
But they're like 10 years behind on tech anyway, right?
But yeah, but especially I think most our motors are equivalent of like a performance model Tesla that we use. We use motors from Tesla and Borg Warner and some and versions of Borg Warner motors are two big motors we use. And we really like the Tesla ones because of the bang for the buck, and they have a large aftermarket and replacement parts following. So we kind of hot rod them. We modify the cooling system, and we can replace the bearings with better dielectric strength bearings, full ceramic bearings in the Tesla motor. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we can replace the control board so we can have our fingers all over the parameters of the motor.
Yep.
And then we've got a few different suspension setups we can put. We some of the older cars we upgrade with independent rear suspension. Some we keep a traditional style gearbox in the back of the motor and run a traditional longitudinal drive shaft to a Ford 9-inch. Mm-hmm. So really, that's kind of where we get customer specific builds and chassis specific. So if the car lends itself to a rear drive, then we usually go that route. Usually it's battery placement. If we have to stick batteries under the hood, usually we have to stick the motor between the rear wheels. If we have room in the rear than the front of the car, then we'll stick the motor kind of in the trans tunnel. They're quite small,
Mm-hmm.
as you noticed. The motors are probably anywhere from 9 to 12 inches in diameter, so they can sit right where the bell housing usually is in a front, like a traditional rear-wheel drive car. And so we can shove those quite far back, and then have a little room for the batteries in the front of the hood and right behind the back seats.
Right. And you said that the overall weight of the vehicle doesn't really change a lot because old engines and transmissions were very, very heavy, and
the differentials too. The rear ends are heavy as well.
And so the overall vehicle, when you add a bunch of lithium-ion batteries into it, is the same.
It's
right?
about the same, yeah. So, we take about 800 pounds out, and we add in about 800 pounds of motor and battery. So an iron block V8 and 500 pounds, transmission and iron third member housing is, another few hundred pounds. So you're taking out quite a bit of weight. Gas tank, that's 150 pounds, full of gas. So we're adding in 600 pounds of batteries, 200 pounds of motor. So it's about an even swap.
Okay.
It's amazing how, and some of our cars are lighter. I think our Camaro's package and Mustang package is 100 pounds lighter than the original. Our Cobra, Shelby Cobra package is 200 or 300 pounds lighter than the gas motor.
Okay.
So not as big of a battery pack in that one because there's not a lot of room.
So let's go into that. Like you mentioned, you have packages. So the business model itself is not just straight restorations, but like explain to me what you are selling. Like what is the current situation and what is the goal of this thing?
Sure. So the current situation is let's experiment as much as we can and see where the market takes us, since it's an emerging market. Mm-hmm. But right now, before people will trust us to sell anything, we got to prove our product. Mm-hmm. So right now we're in a heavy period of building cars. Mm-hmm. So we're building Camaros, kind of the cliche muscle cars. Camaros, Mustangs, Corvettes, Cobras. Maybe we'll take on a Mopar or two here, pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. And when you say take them on, you're taking the vehicles into your facility here.
Correct.
And
we're either building them for ourselves as a shop car or partnering with a local shop or customer to build one and use their car as a developmental car. For the most part, I took my seed money and we bought one or two of everything that I liked.
Okay.
So, a couple first-gen Camaros, first-gen Mustangs, and first-gen Corvettes.
Okay.
I bought some extra chassis and a 3D scanner. Mm-hmm. Bunch of good computers, and we started scanning. Yep. And so we scanned bodies, scanned chassis, frames, underpinnings of cars. So we have a record of our, we have an envelope of our canvas. Mm-hmm. And then we took that and really saw what motor fits best to where. And so that's kind of how we develop our packages that I spoke about. So to get back to your original question, we do bespoke conversions. We sell turnkey. Bring us your vehicle. We'll convert your vehicle to an EV efficiently and safely. Mm-hmm. Safety being the big term here. There's a handful of people doing what we do around the country and around the world. There's only a small percentage of those shops that are or builders that can really put their background in engineering behind the builds. Mm-hmm. There's mechanics that do it, restoration shops that are starting to do it, but I wouldn't want to drive one of those cars. There's several people doing it very well also, that I would drive any day. We've got some friends in the Denver area that do it well. Some guys in California do it very well. Some guys in Austin, Texas do it very well. But for everyone doing it well, there's probably 5 guys that aren't doing it well. Mm-hmm. Luckily, that most of those are the one-offs and the shade tree guys. Okay. So again, we do turnkey packages for customers. We build turnkey cars ourselves, so kind of up to our specs. We buy and sell cars, and so I had a customer call me this morning looking for a specific vehicle. They don't know anything about cars. Yeah. They just like old cars, and they said, "What do you got for sale?" Mm-hmm. So we definitely build and have cars in our showroom. We do new builds also. So I have been working with the largest dealer of reproduction Cobras and licensed Shelby Cobras, Superformance. And so Downforce Motorsports is the biggest Superformance dealer. So been working with them, and we get Cobras. I buy Cobras from them, drivetrain free, no motor, no transmission. Mm-hmm. And then we have a jig that I designed. We pop in the back of the chassis, and we kind of cut here, drill here, etc. And then I have a cradle we've developed that houses a Tesla large drive unit and axles and so forth, and it bolts into the back of the car. It takes up about a third to half of the trunk. Okay. And so you're still left with quite a bit of trunk. It's almost maybe not a full set of golf clubs in the back because of the width of the car is not that big, but maybe a couple medium roller suitcases, and then batteries up under the hood. So that's a brand new car you can buy from Downforce Motorsports or from us. So most super performances are sold without a motor and transmission for titling licensing purposes because it's essentially a 1965 car.
Okay.
And they're titled as such. And in order for them to do that, they can't sell them with. They can't be a fully running driving car with a new engine.
Right.
So
the DOT hates the new engines and old cars because it needs to be a new car with a new engine, right? and
the crash standards.
Okay.
So like there's no airbags or seatbelts in a 1965 Shelby Cobra. You can add the seatbelts. Adding airbags would be hard. We could do it, but it's I wouldn't recommend it.
I wouldn't recommend it either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend doing it.
Yeah. So
even if you could.
No. So we build those brand new, and you can order those from us, and they're a turnkey fit and finish brand new car, even from a carpeted front trunk to a carpeted rear. Very, very nice fit and finish on those cars. Super Performance does a great job, and I think we just take it the extra mile and finish them out.
Okay.
And then we also sell components and near bolt-in drop-in packages for those vehicles I mentioned: Corvettes, Mustangs, Cobras, and Camaros. So it's a near crate motor that we developed. It's bolted in the front of your transmission tunnel, back of your engine bay. We have a modular kind of engine mount system, bolts to your frame. We make the frame side and the motor side. Mm-hmm. Custom drive shafts that plug into your standard rear end, or we can pair it with the Ford 9-inch. Most of our packages, we either require or recommend rack and pinion steering to make room for battery packs. Most battery packs won't fit with a standard linkage style steering on an old vehicle because it's kind of bulky. It takes up a lot of room in the engine bay. So we partnered with several restoration and parts companies to put these packages together, from a couple different steering companies, suspension companies, air conditioning companies. So we take their components, modify them to fit these cars. So like Resto Mod Air or Classic Auto Air, I take their package, we crack open the heater core and replace it with a non-liquid heater core.
Sure.
Or
resistive heating or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got PTC heater, or we can pair it with a heat pump or a 12-volt or high-voltage compressor, depending on what the customer's need is.
Sure.
And if a customer's car already has AC and heat, we can pair it with a ceramic to water standalone heater that just your heater core hoses plug right into there instead of going into the V8. You got a pump and a heater. Okay. So kind of tuck it away up in your fender, and you never know it's there.
Okay.
So we had, there's a lot more to think about than a motor swap because you're getting rid of all, pulleys and hydraulic systems and anything that powers a normal accessory on a car.
Yeah.
No alternator.
Now, a lot of old cars don't have power steering, though. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So you don't have that issue as much, but you can add it if you want it, it sounds like, right?
So here's the thing. The power steering on old cars means you got to turn the wheel a lot more rotations, right, which is not good for performance driving.
No.
And it's, so you're right. We can avoid that issue if we leave the steering as is or go to a manual rack and pinion. But if you want tighter steering, like a modern car, everyone's used to power steering. So you've got to kind of put a power steering rack in there. There's a couple of different ways around it.
Yeah.
But we had a electric power assist steering rack. A steering column.
I mean, it's a pretty common thing you can get on basically most modern cars.
Sure. Like Prius, lots of hybrid and electric cars have them. Mm-hmm. So we put on it's a small motor that mounts right behind your firewall underneath the dash.
Okay.
And that works with a standard rack and pinion or steering box. We also use it's kind of a popular upgrade for cars from the 70s, 80s, 90s is a electric power steering pump. So it modifies your hydraulic power steering pump. Instead of running off the motor, it runs off an electric motor. So like all Volvos and other cars use electric hydraulic power steering pumps. And then we haven't done any cars with it yet, but it's something I see the industry going to because it's a less complicated steering rack. Electric steering system is an electrified rack. So new Mustangs and I believe the Mustang Mach-E. Yeah. And I think all new Mustangs actually use an electric rack.
Yeah.
So instead of an electric column, it's an electric rack. It's less bulky, and it's more tunable, I believe. Okay. So I think that's probably the way that system is going in the future.
Sure.
But you can a la carte add on as much to your EV conversion as you want.
Until you get the actuators out of a Cybertruck or something, right? Because I think it uses steering.
Oh, does it use linear actuators?
I thought it did.
That'd be pretty cool.
Because they're independent. Like all four are independent of each other.
Well, that would be.
And then they're redundant. I think that's how, because it's 4-wheel steering.
Yeah, and that would make sense, but that would be a drive-by-wire versus just like a brake-by-wire.
Which
or
it is a drive-by-wire.
Sorry, drive-by-wire traditionally to you and I probably is throttle pedal.
Oh, okay.
So steer-by-wire. Sorry.
Steer-by-wire, yeah.
Yeah, so I misspoke. Steer-by-wire, which is cool. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it is steer-by-wire. Like,
that's
it's
awesome.
True steer-by-wire system, which is why it's like, it has to be like double or triple redundant or whatever they do. But yeah.
So even drive-by-wire systems require redundancy. So two throttle signals we have in our cars, and so to anything, any non-cable driven system. Even we convert some of our cable drives to potentiometer drives. So instead of a true like EV gas pedal, sometimes it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense to convert the pedal. So we'll take a cable drive system to a linkage attached to a 0 to 5 volt
linear
pot. Yep.
Okay.
Or a rotary pot, linear, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll use that as our throttle input signal.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so you're selling these as
not to get too technical.
You've got 3 variations of it. As one is you restore a car that somebody wants to bring you. One, you buy your own cars, modify them, and sell them.
Correct.
Or 3, you make like a kit that you are working on making a kit that you can sell to people to install themselves.
We have the kit available, but we are working constantly on expanding the applications for that.
Okay.
So we've got a kind of a bolt-in chassis independent front motor kit and a chassis independent rear motor kit. The front motor kit drops into pretty much any car and just limits battery space. Okay. The rear engine kit bolts in any car that'll accept a rear Tesla, but that one takes more hands-on adapting to fit to the chassis, and then you put a much larger battery pack under the hood where the original motor was, because you have more real estate.
Okay.
I see the front motor one taken off a lot more for the early adopters of the muscle car, because when you pop the hood, they want to see the motor.
Sure.
And when they pop the hood and they see a front trunk or batteries, they're like, not sure I like that. Once you drive it, you don't care. But take it to the car show, you want to show it off. So it's definitely, I think, cooler if you can be able to point to your motor and say, yeah, that's it right there. When you're at Cars and Coffee or so.
So from a business perspective, like, do you prefer doing the builds yourself, or would you prefer making the kits and then essentially selling them to installers?
Well, that's a trick question. So personally, I like making stuff.
Right.
But from a business standpoint, I think for our business to grow and succeed to where it needs to be, we're going to have to focus on the other half, which is making product we can sell.
Scalable.
Yeah, it's scalable. So, which side of the business is more scalable? Definitely the product side. And we can pump these out and have them on the shelf. They take slight we've designed them to be modular, and so we can modify and tweak the motor mounting geometry of our cradle, and so you basically slide them out forward or aft and weld it in place to meet different chassis.
Okay.
And then most of it all bolts up to a standard like GM TH350, TH400 style transmission mount in the back, which will bolt up to any aftermarket transmission mount from a Summit or whoever.
Okay, so if you let's say you have one of your Camaros here, which you basically have a package and you know exactly how it works. Like, how long does it typically, like if someone were to buy your kit, how long does it typically take to install that then? Like if they're installing it themselves or paying someone to install, what would they expect?
I would say so if they have...
I mean, you're not getting into the thousands of hours, right? I mean, I don't know.
So
I mean,
right now,
is a bunch of hours, but
right now we've been mixing in a lot of restoration with our builds. Okay. So it is in the, the hours are pretty excessive.
So you're doing the body work, or you're having it outsourced essentially, but you're getting that stuff all because the cars all look immaculate here. They all look like they're done.
We have done way too much in-house to be honest. I really wish we would have outsourced more than we did, and that is the direction we're going. So we're kind of, I drew a line in the sand and said, we've done too much here, and this is not we're very good at it, but we're not very efficient at it.
Sure.
We're as efficient as we need to be, but it is more, our time is better spent working on growing the business and growing the electrification packages. We do really good work, excellent work. We've got excellent welders and fabricator guys here. I love fabricating parts, and I'm a perfectionist. So, everything we do here is very, very nice. But our time is much better spent on
Sure.
the engineering side. So
Okay.
we're about to start. We're kind of in a transition right now of outsourcing our restoration instead of doing it in house. So as I mentioned earlier, the goal is to outsource all restoration.
Yep.
Except for like bolting on. Right now we bolt on aftermarket chassis, bolt on the suspension,
Sure.
bolt on the brakes. If we can bolt it on, we're doing it here.
Okay.
But if we can't, cutting, welding, whatever, I'd prefer to outsource it.
Yep.
So we can focus, that way it can get that car, progress can be made on that car
And then you can work on
elsewhere
another one at
while
the
we
same
can
time.
work on another one, or we can work on the electrification system while that car is out at
Sure.
fab or out at restoration or shop or paint or fab or paint. So the Mustang, the white Mustang GT350 you saw,
Yep.
we built that car in about 30 days.
Okay.
So that's from ground up. For the day we pulled the V8 out, it was 60 days till it was done.
Okay.
But it was out for paint and stuff for some of that time. So
Sure.
because we don't paint in house, we did all the body work on that car ourselves, but we did have it out for paint.
Okay.
We're waiting on wheels to be widened and a few other random and suspension parts to show up in the mail. But hands on, under a month for a full install.
Okay.
And that is with developing battery boxes and everything for it. So just pure install, I think we could probably install that in a week.
Okay.
So I would say a
So
week.
it's very doable, and it doesn't not
But-
going to like you're not spending $500,000 modifying your Camaro or something like that. You can get it done for a reasonable amount of money then. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're comparing it to like a general registration though, right?
Sure.
Or
So
Restomod.
if you'd like it to be as restored as a traditional Restomod, there's nothing. This is definitely not cheaper
Right.
than a Chevy V8.
Okay.
But if you'd like to, the sky's the limit on how nice and how resto or how mod you want to get.
Right.
In fact, this is probably the most mod you can get,
Okay.
modern and modified.
Yeah.
With the EV powertrain, because it's not a drop-in kit, or a drop-in package like a V8.
But it's like is
we
like
have
the
to
batteries
add
and the
balance
motors
that drops in.
I mean, like if you're throwing on like a turbocharged, V8 in there and you have all the bells and whistles on it, I mean, those are super expensive engines.
Yeah. So our like crate motor is around 20 grand.
Okay.
And so it's similar to a bells and whistle,
Okay.
like LS7 supercharged motor,
Okay.
I guess LS9 is what they are. So it's very similar. But then you have an extra computer, you have batteries.
Yep.
Batteries are a lot more expensive than a gas tank.
Yeah. Right.
However, add up 10 years of gas versus 10 years of battery, it's quite a bit cheaper.
Okay.
Or sorry, not quite a bit. It's more comparable than you would think.
Okay.
If you drive it, quite a bit. But the cost is not astronomical to, it's not out of this picture for most. If you're going to drop $100K on a frame off restoration
Yeah.
car, you could do the similar cost for a build,
Yeah.
for an EV build.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
And-
like it's not out of the ballpark. Then I mean, okay, it's on the more expensive side, but it's not that far out. And when I say like expensive engines, like you go to some of the Steam engines are like I'm sure they're spending 50 to 100 grand on just the engine.
Yeah.
So they can get wildly expensive, right? So
For sure. And so our standard packages have anywhere from like 300 to 600 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
Our front drop ins are 300 to 500. Our base package is 300,
Mm-hmm.
and that might not sound like that much to most. However, it makes the motor output itself makes around 370 foot-pounds of torque, but behind a 3-to-1 gear reduction, that's a little over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque at the prop shaft,
Mm-hmm.
and then through a 410 or so let's say 4-to-1 rear end axle, now you're at close to what's that 4,000
Yeah.
RPM
4,000.
4,000 foot-pounds of torque.
Right.
So at the tires at all times.
Yeah.
So it's a gunshot out of the hole. And anyone who's driven a performance Tesla or performance EV really knows that there's not a lot of gas cars can compare to
Sure.
the instant acceleration, but also the buttery smooth acceleration too. They're not peaky. They're very smooth, and we can actually adjust the tunes on these cars to make them drive like a Camry, And then you can flip a switch, and then boom, you've got a all your torque down low dragster bullet.
yeah.
So it's pretty cool to have a car that you can have a clean, nice, smooth, quiet car. You can drive your classic car to church. You can take your family out for ice cream, and it's not got a high lobe cam in it that smells. Your whole family smells like gas when they get out at TCBY to get ice cream, and so it makes it really more usable, more drivable.
Okay.
And again, I'm a gas guy. I like to rip in my Corvette and stuff, but for usability, and as you get older, I'm in my 40s now.
Yeah, the sound and the noise doesn't appeal to me as much as it
exactly.
used to, right?
When you're in your 20s, it's like, oh yeah, that exhaust sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Rev it up. But now it's like, oh damn, I'm the guy in the block with the loud car that all the neighbors like look at, like that guy was never going to grow up. So it is, it comes with age, and for sure, like some of the younger guys, you hear them talking like, yeah, but you lose the noise and the rumble of V8. Well, that's the first thing people ask, and what about the sound? But then if they've driven an EV, it's the last thing they ask, because they understand, like, oh yeah, it's okay, it's no maintenance, no oil changes, no fuel drips, no fumes in the garage. It's just smoother, and it's the future of hot rodding, I think.
And you talked about this before we started this interview too. Was a big challenge that obviously you're going to have taking these old cars is trying to deal with the Bubbas or the people who are just like, that's blasphemy, right? But you were saying specifically that people that are looking for these cars are not those. They're not the same people, right? You're not trying to convert the guy who says it's.
No, I'll let Tesla and Chevy and Ford do that, on the big scale, with their daily drivers. But every customer and inquiry we've had they've already adopted EVs, so they have a Tesla as their daily driver. Their spouse has one.
Mm-hmm.
They've ridden in Ubers and taxis
or Taycan or something, right?
Yeah, or they've they're a 911 guy, and then they got talked into the Taycan, and they're like, holy crap, I'm never looking back. Like, this is the nicest Porsche and the fastest Porsche, and I can fit my kids in the back seat, and it's still faster than my 911. So it's, there's a lot of benefits, obviously.
Sure.
But yeah, it is, we're not trying to convert the guys that are lifelong, old school muscle heads. Mm-hmm. I'll let them convert themselves as they see the world. When they go to the drag strip and they see a 6-seater Tesla Model X Plaid just waste them at the local drag strip, that'll be what converts them. Or when I pull up to them in one of our cars, and it, just running on a 10-second quarter mile next to their big V8 that runs a 12.
Yeah.
And it's no comparison. And then I don't have to do any maintenance. I don't have to do anything. I could just drive my car home, and they've got to put theirs in the trailer because they're running leaded gas and who knows what else. So it's, I think the industry, and I hope the market and the industry, does the convincing for me, and we're ahead of the curve. So far, that seems to be the case.
Okay.
And we're excited to kind of be a part of this emerging industry.
Okay. So tell me something you've really messed up or cost you a ton, or screw-ups or big challenges you've had doing this.
All right. I'll give two. So one is people. And when I first started the business, my business partner said the hardest part of this business is going to be the people. Mm-hmm. And he was definitely right. So I'm used to running and managing engineers.
Yep.
And I do that here too, but teams of very experienced engineers, design guys, fabrication guys, really dedicated guys that have had been in the same industry for their whole careers, whether it's designing machinery or high tech electronics and whatnot. And everyone they take very little management because everybody is a professional. And here at a shop, you've got to have guys from all walks of life and different jobs and different aspects. Well, engineers are all kind of dorks, right? In our own special way, and we're passionate. We like to be the best at stuff, but you got to realize. I've now realized that managing different people from different walks of life and different backgrounds, different educations, different skill sets has been more the challenging part of it, which I think any business owner that manages different people, different skill sets and different tasks and jobs has come to realize. And so this is really my first, eye-opening experience to that.
Okay.
And secondly is how to spend money. I was too frugal at the beginning,
okay,
and I spent money in the wrong places. So I should have hired a a second and third in command at the shop to grow and learn with me as I started the business instead of doing it all myself. And so the first year, at least year of the business, I did it all myself. And then I hired guys, and I had to train them and teach them. So that took away from my bandwidth to grow the business and keep developing.
Instead of hiring somebody that knew what you needed to begin with.
Correct. Or letting them grow with me when we first started.
Okay.
So I had, I learned it all myself, and then I'm having to, kind of disseminate that information to my employees and train them up. Mm-hmm. And that takes away from me also growing the business. Okay. So I think our next, we've recently hired a very senior lead mechanical engineer to take that responsibility off my plate. And we have had more of a junior electrical engineer mm-hmm. on staff who was excellent, but we're going to hire we're actively shopping for a senior electrical engineer and software guy to kind of help me with the programming and wiring design and wiring schematic development and really manage that side of the business so we can start outsourcing wiring harnesses so we can not have to make them in-house anymore.
Gotcha.
Because that's really a tiresome or tedious part of the business is wire loom making, and it's got to be perfect, and if you can shop it out to a third party, it'd be a lot more convenient.
Right.
So I think really, like I said, spending money on people right away versus inventory and components. I kind of bought one of everything when I first started, which was, I think, the right thing to do. So I could be well versed in the industry and kind of give me some cred, saying, no, I've done it in all of these cars. I've outfitted Corvettes, Camaros, Mustangs, and an assortment of cars. We've done the EV conversion in all of those versus just do one car, kind of be like a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
But I spread myself way too thin, and I had the bandwidth, I had the funds to hire senior guys at the beginning. And I think I should have done that. They could have been on the journey with me versus, come along after we've got the company started.
Okay.
We between myself and mainly my business partner.
Which you said it's just two of you, right?
It's the two of us. Yeah, two owners. We're 50-50 ownership. Yeah, of the business. He's kind of more business side. I'm obviously the technical side. Mm-hmm. And I think we needed more bandwidth all around.
Okay.
We would be way farther along than we are now, and right now we've done almost no marketing and advertising because I'm nervous on the bandwidth, the growth that we'll see. Mm-hmm. Because in the organic marketing, we're already getting customers from Hollywood and from the East Coast, and we've had inquiries from Europe. A couple, wanted to ship us cars from Germany, and things like that. So I don't want to bite off too much, more than I can chew.
Yep.
However, if I had the right guys with me from the beginning that were competent, and not that my guys today are competent, but I need more, and I wish they'd have more experience with me here in this industry, because this is not I don't have a large pool of of competitors or things to choose from to steal good employees from. So I've got to train them up here. So anyway, I think it would have been cool to bring on a few guys and put more trust in people at the beginning to grow the company with me instead of grow it by myself and then hire people later.
Gotcha.
And it would have been, the whole journey has been really fun. We have a really cool shop, a really fun shop. It's, one of the nicest car shops, I think, and probably the nicest car shop I've ever been in. And we worked really hard to put this shop together. Yep. All my employees, all the guys, all hands on deck, have all been really good on making the cleanest, nicest, not even EV facility, just car facility, I think, in general. So our customers feel comfortable and safe that their cars are getting the, grade A, top-notch treatment, white glove treatment when they're here.
And so people know this is about a 10,000, you said it was 10,000 square foot facility. Yep. It used to be a performance off-road truck shop, but they went out of business, and you guys owned the building before. They were leasing it from you guys before you came out with the e-muscle car stuff.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
So I started my business kind of in the corner here and used some of the truck guys as extra labor. So it allowed me to start very lean, as a owner operator, solo business or solo guy, and use their labor. That didn't really pan out too much, as I was always kind of the second fiddle of their, they took their off-the-street customers over me.
Yep.
So I ended up doing a lot by myself, and then I hired some guys, and we really started making some headway. So that kind of opened my eyes. I said, man, I wish I would have done this to begin with.
Yep.
But yeah, so when the truck business that I was sharing a shop with went out of business, we kind of gutted the shop and put in really nice, like, wood floors and repainted the shop, re-insulated it, put in AC, redid the break room and showroom. So we've got the whole point of me quitting my really nice and cush engineering job.
And were you doing both of them at the same time, or was it?
I did do both at the same time for about a year or 6 months. I was kind of moonlighting while I could with kids and responsibility on the EV business. And then I said, you know what, it's never going to take off if I don't dive in with both feet.
Okay.
So decided to do that, and that's when I quit my job and moved here. But as I was saying, the goal is to have a super fun, relaxing, non-stressful place to come into work for both myself and all my staff. So it's a leap of faith to kind of do anything in emerging industry. So I want my guys to feel like they're coming into a fun, safe, exciting place to work where they're doing something important. They're developing the hot rods of the future.
Yeah.
And I think everybody here's kind of on the same page. We're all really love what we do and coming into work every day.
Okay. And the rest of the facility here, you have a showroom up front, which has probably 6 or 7 of your completed. I mean, they're gorgeous cars. 2 of them were not ones that you just bought and you're just selling. That you never did the conversions on.
Yeah,
right?
we bought them to convert and then decided to replace them with a different model. So they were coupe Mustangs, and we decided to build some fastbacks instead.
Okay.
So we bought them to scan and kind of get the dimensions of early Mustangs. Which was actually turned out to be a good thing, because now I've got the scan of 5 different 1964 through 66 Mustangs, and so which have the same frame through 70, but I've got all the different variances, so I know the min and max
which
frame
is probably
width.
pretty significant.
It is. So it really lets you know, okay, how wide does that slot need to be to match every single chassis? How can I design this motor mount to accommodate all sorts of generations of cars.
Yeah.
So we do that same thing with Camaros. We built a 67, a 68, soon hopefully a 69.
Okay.
So we'll have all kind of years of early Camaros, and so it's handy to have multiple of a certain type of car. So you really opened your eyes to how much adjustability you need for that type of installation.
Right. Okay. So let's get into the technical of the business. So. Tell me some of the tools you use to run the business. Clearly SolidWorks, because you showed me that, right? That was up
so
front.
we use SolidWorks electrical, SolidWorks mechanical, and so we've got, I think, 3 or 4 licenses of SolidWorks that we use on an everyday basis. We set up with a Cloud Vault.
Okay.
We went with SolidWorks' cloud system, but they didn't have a add-in for electrical.
Okay.
And so we switched back to the standalone SolidWorks.
Stored it locally.
So, well, it's all cloud, but the SolidWorks has a new system, the 3D Experience.
Okay.
Which is
I'm not a
brand
designer,
new.
so I don't know any of it.
Yeah, it's brand new. So it's all cloud based. You can run it from a basic computer. It doesn't matter what your graphics card is. Doesn't matter what your processing power is. We tried that, but they didn't have the electrical add-in for it.
Okay.
So I think they just came out with the electrical add-in. So we may go back to it because it's much more affordable. But yeah, so we're a heavy SolidWorks user. So we 3D scan the entire car. We have every EV motor and battery that we can think of drawn up in CAD, so we can put everything together like Legos and Tetris and make sure everything fits right. 3D scanning I mentioned, so we use an Ein, I think it's called EinScan, kind of middle of the road, above consumer grade, but not super high end scanner. It's plenty of resolution
good
for what we
you
do.
need. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not the 20 grand one, but it's not the $2,000 one, if that makes sense.
What is it? What are the really microscopic level?
Oh, the ones with the
metrology
arms and stuff that are they've got a XYZ gantry system on their arm and things like that. Yeah, for a lot of high end QC and QA products use those. You probably remember that from your defense days or something.
I actually did it when they never did it at the Lockheed facility. I did because we were R&D stuff, but I worked for Johnson Controls as an intern doing automotive interiors in college. Okay, and that's one of the things that I got to see them do because we were printing prototype. Center console things or something, and then I'd give the first production run stuff and give it to the metrology guy, and they would go in and measure all the little spots to make sure everything was exactly where it was supposed to be, and it's kind of interesting. But
So we use everything from a tape measure to a 3D scanner and
Okay.
CAD and get it down to the 100,000 or thousandth of an inch.
Okay.
On some parts. So the electrical side of tools and technical tools we use is pretty high end. So really high end, voltmeters, multimeters, power supply units to test and charge batteries and get everything perfect. Test for resistance on connections and things like that. But our tools are really the expensive thing. Really is having insulated tools.
Okay.
So we're working around high voltage.
Yep.
So some of the PPE and some of the tools are very, very industry specific. So like 10,000 volt insulated tools. Most of them are made by a brand called WIHA, WIHA. They're a very high end hand tool company that it's special. One of their specialties is isolated tools.
Okay.
So from socket sets, ratchets, wrenches, hex drives, to anything we could possibly need, torque wrenches, you name it. I bought it to make sure we could build them as best and as safe as possible. And then the PPE, the only required PPE you need to work on a like sub 1,000 volt system or whatever is 10,000 volt gloves.
Okay.
But we go way above that just because, bare minimum is meant to be something to keep you alive, not comfortable.
Not to keep you safe.
Safe. So, so arc flash shirts and sometimes if we're doing an 800 volt system or something higher, maybe a balaclava and a face shield. I have the full monkey suit. I think it's a level 12 or 20 arc flash jumpsuits. If we're working on it hadn't happened yet, but if someone brings us a car that maybe was damaged,
Okay.
or something like that, or we got to take it apart and disassemble a Tesla battery or something like that, or a motor, and we're unsure of the state of the car or the battery. So we take it seriously, and as you said, we're not a mom and pop restoration shop that's experimenting with EVs. We've got a full staff of engineers designing them from the ground up.
Yep.
And really, I think where we can set ourselves apart is the safety, not just in our safety here at the shop, but in the safety designed and developed into the vehicles themselves, from using the same technology your current car uses on setting the airbags off.
Okay.
We use those inertia switches or rollover switches, as they're called, to kill the voltage between the battery packs. So we kill it internally from the junction box out to the motor, so the motor can stop spinning, driving, whatnot. And we also kill the voltage between the battery packs. So if you have a split battery pack, one in the front, one in the back, we can kill the voltage. So as soon as you get in a fender bender accident, whatnot, excuse me, a contactor will open and open the loop, so there's no voltage at all. So all the wires running between the front of the car and the rear of the car are essentially dead.
Okay.
So a fireman, first responder, et cetera, can cut your car open, jaws of life, and excuse me, and not have to worry about getting electrocuted.
Okay.
Also, our batteries are isolated from the frame, so if you get in a wreck, you're not have to worry about the voltage jumping to the frame too. So we don't bolt anything directly to the frame at all. Okay. We isolate everything on rubber poly bushings, so that way you don't have to worry about your floorboard being the ground, the ground with 400 volts of electricity, and then you step out of the car and ground it, and you make the last connection. So there's a lot that goes into it safety wise, into the development, design, and the engineering side that is not seen or even easy to describe or talk about. But I think that's the big difference between an engineered vehicle and then a DIY EV conversion.
So when it comes to the more of the business side of things, like, are you using like QuickBooks Enterprise, or how are you tracking these builds and bill of materials and like a package, and how do people buy? Do they have to call you, or do you have a website?
So answer your first part of the question, we're not doing as good of a job as I would hope. We do QuickBooks to track inventory builds and a lot, and assign all component purchases and part purchases to a build. So each of our cars has a serial number or build number, and then we assign everything in QuickBooks to try to track everything that way.
Okay.
That's pretty efficient at tracking builds and costs.
Well, I have a tool for you.
I know you do. So I'm not familiar with it too much, but I know what your tool is, and I probably need to tinker with it and see.
I'll
if
show you afterwards. But for people who are wondering, I'm going to get him using MSA, and then all his builds are going to be tracked so well that he's going to wonder what he's been doing for the last how many years.
So definitely Excel. I do all of my wiring diagrams in Excel before I do them in SolidWorks, and that's really, I think, that's for ease of organization. I honestly, I think that's how everyone does them. Before you go in, you kind of do a block diagram, and Excel is my block diagram.
Okay.
You can have a column of your pinouts, and J1, J2, J3, P1, P2, P3, for your different connectors, receptacles, etc., lengths,
right,
and then pins and
gauges.
And exactly.
Right.
So we can run the whole car in a wiring harness in an Excel file before we purchase any wire at all.
Okay.
And then we can run, like I said, you mentioned lengths. We kind of fine tune those in SolidWorks and run those
because
wiring.
You have a 3D scanned.
Well, I can do it in 3D. Yeah. So definitely because we have a 3D scan, but we can do it kind of. If you can put a point A and a point B in electrical, you can have it route the wire between the two.
Okay.
And you can have keep out boxes where you just draw like a
on the
construction
car.
line.
You're saying like when you have the car drawn, you can
with or without the car. I can draw keep outs, and I can draw.
Okay.
So the wire will go around a keep out. So I can draw the floorboard as a keep out, and it'll go around, and it'll run the wire, through the rocker. Or I can have a keep out on the passenger and driver's floorboard, or run the wire through the trans tunnel.
Okay.
To help me get approximate lengths.
Okay.
And then so we'll build the wires that way.
So you don't have to have the car here and run string everywhere, right?
No, I don't have to have the car here and run string everywhere. I sometimes it's helpful and it's the best way to get it perfect. But no, we run everything in theory in SolidWorks, and with or without the car scanned.
Okay.
Scanning helps for sure.
So how are people buying the products? Do they have to call you, or do you have it on the website, or what?
Right now, we are in the process of setting up e-commerce on the website. Okay. Right now, everything is done through in-person, like over the phone, via email.
Because typically they're all pretty expensive builds, so you're not like throwing your debit card in there and ordering it on Shopify store, right?
No. So, but that hopefully we hope to change that. So we'd like to sell components, and so even little stuff. So say you need a AC system for your build at home. Maybe say you have a high lift cam and you need a non-vacuum brake system for your hot rod. Well, we sell electric braking systems. We use a Bosch iBooster wired up to either the factory or
so you have stuff
Tesla,
that even
Honda,
works
or Willwood
for
car
ice engine cars.
Oh yeah,
okay, sure.
Electric power steering. It's getting pretty popular to put on older cars because it simplifies the steering system quite a bit.
Okay.
You can fine tune it. It has speed sensitive steering.
Sure.
Using GPS or you can use a potentiometer to adjust how much feedback you want in your power steering.
Okay.
So those are systems that are electrified that we use on every build that we will now offer to the public as well.
For sure.
And so we're trying to grow our store, and we're putting everything together now. So very soon, 2025, start of Q1, my goal is to have probably close to 150, 200 products on our website for sale.
Okay.
That are basically everything you need to a la carte or DIY put together a package for your vehicle.
Okay.
And then we'll also have kind of full, let's call it EV in a box for specific cars, with and without batteries. So I'm more keen to sell them without batteries, just because the installation and hookup of the battery is a little bit more experience needed, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say it.
But how does that work out? Like if you don't sell it with the battery, then how do they?
It takes the liability off of us.
Right. But
so I'd like to sell.
If you can't get a battery pack for it, what is if you sell a kit or something without a battery, they're not going to have a battery pack available for them, right?
Well, they could repurpose a Tesla pack. They could buy Tesla modules from a salvage or eBay or something and make their own pack, which is getting more and more common.
Okay.
Or Nissan Leaf cells or Volkswagen ID3 or ID4 cells. They can take those whole packs and put them together.
Now, would you be selling a box that you can put the cells into? How does, I'm just kind of grasping, if I wanted to put this in a car.
When I said with and without batteries, so we will do that with batteries, but we would do it in-house.
Okay. So you're doing the install to make sure it's all up to.
Bingo.
Okay.
So if we sell it and it's going out of house, I will probably start selling without batteries.
Okay.
If it's an in-house install, then we'll do it. I would take on that with the batteries here, definitely.
Sure. Okay.
Turnkey.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's the liability of someone until I can get. So again, and this may change quickly as we fine tune our installation and packages.
Yep.
But just the routing of the wires, keeping them away from a drive shaft, things like that. I have.
Right.
I guess I have trust issues.
Like the people who run
really
their remote battery right along the exhaust pipe, right?
Exactly. So, right now, if I sell a kit to somebody and instructions say to run the wires, through the rocker panel on the outside of the vehicle, and they
Mm-hmm.
run it through the transmission tunnel because it's easier, and then it contacts, rubs on the drive shaft, and then boom, it grounds out to the drive shaft.
Okay.
There's a lot of liability, and I don't want to, unless I can verify it's installed properly and safely and strain relieved and the connector's crimped right and this and that. So if we can sell a kit that is basically too foolproof to ever be installed wrong, that's when we'll start selling the batteries to be plug and play.
Okay.
We're actively working on that. So, having connectors that are impossible, connectors that are impossible to put on backwards.
Okay.
You can't switch around your wiring harness. They're all keyed,
sure.
but they're also poka-yoked.
Okay.
So I think when we, for those of you guys who don't know, poka-yoke is a Japanese term that, one things can only go one way. You can't dangerously put them together. So kind of a slang term, but if we can integrate keys, connectors with maybe length of cables and the way a cable's branched off, so if you have a leg that goes here of a wiring harness, that when plugged into this apparatus, it limits the travel of the other leg, they wouldn't be able to install it in the trans tunnel if it's keyed to or if it's branched to let's say a high voltage line that goes to the charger that's in the back left of the car.
Right.
Well, it would force all of the high voltage to be wired on the left of the car. And then maybe we could have all the low voltage wired on the right side of the car, so there's not any EMI between the high voltage and the signal wires. So, because you definitely don't want that in a high powered car. You have interference on your signal wires. Oh crap, why is it accelerating awkwardly? Not that that's ever happened on most builds, because all those stuff are usually all shielded and CAN wires are all twisted and shielded, if done correctly. And so there's just a lot of liability in this emerging industry. Until something is more commonplace and there's a rule of thumb for everything, we're more comfortable doing things in-house.
Okay, so you kind of touched on it a little bit already. So moving forward, do you have like a 5-year, 10-year plan for the business?
We do. So, we have a couple plans. Like I said, it's emerging industry, and we're kind of throwing a lot of darts to see what the most profitable avenue is. And I think definitely the scalability of the parts and components and making it. A lot of people will sell you EV components, but then you get them and you're like, all right, what do I do with all these things? How do I get it fit in my car safely and efficiently and robustly? So it is a robust, real solution. It's not a DIY garage build, and that's kind of where we come in. So our goal is to be the foremost EV converter in the country. With safety and robustness, engineered solutions versus built solutions. And I think that's probably the most profitable avenue of the business. So we're going to try to grow that. That's our main goal for 2025, is to develop these packages and kits to be the easiest, most turnkey, bolt-in style packages you can get that are as robust and safe as possible.
Okay.
And then grow that part of the business kind of separately from the conversion business here in-house.
Okay.
And then focus on conversions here, probably doing, maybe one shop build a quarter and selling those, but then taking on, hopefully, I don't know, 3 to 4 customer builds a month.
Okay.
In the coming years.
You don't have the capacity for that right now.
I don't. So we're currently hiring. We can do well.
You only have
it varies.
5 lifts back there. 4.
There's 4. Yeah. So we got 4 lifts, and
but there's a lot of space.
Three big lifts
for all
and a little one
underneath, right?
Not necessarily. So batteries installed from the top.
Yeah.
Wiring most wiring installed from inside and under the dash. So that's all on the ground, and seats out, dash, glove box out. I'd say half the build is on top.
Okay.
Half the build's underneath.
Okay.
So we can do
rotate them
quite a
around.
bit. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And we try to build no more than 3 cars at a time, so we can focus on the quality of the build.
Yep.
So I see that maintaining or growing at hopefully a slower rate than the parts business, because the parts is more scalable.
Right.
And then we'd like to be, just grow the name and the reputation of the business, eventually to probably, if not sell the business, at least spin it off or grow some legs on the business.
Okay.
And probably expand into battery recycling and some of the accessory business.
I've been
to
sitting here
EVs.
thinking my whole time, you're like talking about disassembling the cells down, and I'm like, there is like an astronomically huge market coming for rebuilding EV batteries. And I know some of them can't be rebuilt, or some of, like, I knew like most of the newer Teslas are like, you like can open them, you rip them open, and then you essentially can't put them back together, as far as I know. But the older ones are rebuilt.
Model S and Model X before like 2022 are all rebuildable.
Yeah, and there are people that do that already,
yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
crazy, because people are like, oh, you got to spend $25,000 on a new Model S battery, but these guys will rebuild it for like $3,000. So it's
Yeah.
like a tenth the price.
Yep. So battery recycling and remanufacturing, I see that being a separate business. We're going to spin off probably and run it in parallel. And kind of to kickstart that, I designed a few battery recycling containers, because I saw that as being
High risk, yeah. You're buying used batteries or taking in used batteries that could be potentially damaged.
Well, that's the link in the chain of well, crap, I need to, my car was wrecked. How am I going to get these batteries out of the car? What am I going to do with them?
Yeah.
Where am I going to take them? So I've got a few different sizes, one being almost a car, like container size, and then the others being smaller, of how to handle and recycle and take in recycled batteries in a safe manner. So, environmentally safe, fireproof type boxes and containers that are, some that can be like a rollaway, container truck style, forkliftable, things where they're insulated. The outside of the container is insulated from the inside of the container.
Okay.
That way you're not going to ground out and have a dangerous situation.
Okay.
And then have voltage limits per the batteries and per the containers. So, certain containers that can handle over 100 volts, certain ones are under 100 volts, because under 100 volts is kind of like low voltage.
Yeah.
And then over 100 is basically considered high voltage, 100, 150, whatever.
Sure.
So I think that's where we not necessarily take this business, but I think instead of keep all our eggs in one basket, is realize that the EV market's coming and it's growing.
Yeah.
And I think this is obviously the most fun aspect of it is making cool, fast, old cars. And that's something that's near and dear to me that I hope I get to do for a long time.
Yeah.
But I do see if we can make it more automated, and as we mature, our products will be more turnkey and scalable.
Okay.
Right now, we're developing as we go.
Yeah.
So until we fine tune the products that we develop and get them really, really streamlined and repeatable, we've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
And I think probably another year, couple years of developing our products and getting them really modular.
Yeah.
And then I'll have the bandwidth to spin that off into probably, let somebody else take the helm, and then work on the battery recycling aspect. And then, I think also.
And when we say recycling, we don't mean grinding them up to the raw materials.
No.
It's like taking the packs and making them into a good pack. Taking like old or worn packs or bad packs and building them back into a usable pack again.
And transporting them to the people that grind them up and recycle the rare earth metals inside.
Like the new Redstone or whatever. What is the company that is?
There's a couple. So the government was giving away money to anyone that said they could do it. Most of those companies can't. They were just taking the money and seeing what they, giving their best shot. And most were just buying real estate to maybe do it and then fail and then still have real estate, I think, is what I saw happening. So I think my
because it's going to be huge. I mean,
I think so.
The guys rebuilding the old Model S batteries, I mean, there's like tens of thousands of those cars.
Yeah.
Right? But now you have like literally 2 million Model Ys made, or 1 million Model Ys made every year.
Yeah.
And I have a first gen one, so it's now 4 years on a Model Y. And some of the Model 3s are a little bit older than that, but I think the early ones can be rebuilt too, can they not? Or are they all the like
they're all cylindrical
style?
No, they should be able to be rebuilt.
Okay. Well, I'm just like,
not as easily though, I think,
yeah.
but
I've seen people take them apart where they like literally like ripping them open like a tuna can.
So
right?
I think the way to rebuild the Model 3 though is the easy way to do it is you don't rip them open like a tuna can. So inside there's 4 major battery packs modules inside.
A module with the cells inside of each of those.
Yeah, so there's a pack made up of modules. Yeah. Modules are made up of cells.
Yeah.
And, well, sets of cells for sure. And you can replace the modules. So I think the right is you get 4 Model Y packs and you make 3 good ones out of 4 bad ones type thing. And that's the way to recycle them efficiently.
Okay.
And then you scrap the rest, but not when I say scrap, I mean you disassemble them to a manageable size, manageable voltage, and then you send them off to a materials recycler.
Yeah.
And so, but there's no way to get them to materials. So my contribution, I think, to that industry and that thing will be I'd like to fine tune and market my container solution to municipalities, cities, fire departments, police departments, so they can have these
the waste management people
exactly
who already don't take batteries, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then so they have a method to actually take batteries.
Okay.
Because right now, without the method to take them, we're as you said, 2 million Model Ys being made a year. Like we're pumping
in 10
batteries.
years, we're gonna have 1 million batteries. Or however long.
What are we gonna do with
these?
Their
lifespan's probably 10 to probably 15 years, if I had to guess, on the newest ones.
Yeah, it depends how much you're driving. Yeah. So they could last 30 years if you're not driving much, and you keep your charge between like 35 and 65, 70. Yeah. But if you're using it, all the way down to 5 to 10% and going up to 90, you're actually straining the battery a lot more.
Yeah.
So. But it's coming. It's a predicament we're going to be stuck with. We're using batteries at a higher rate than we've ever used them before.
Right.
And they're going to be in everyone's garages. Yep. Right. They're not going to be in specialty equipment or just in computer laptops anymore. They're a way bigger scale.
Right.
So hopefully, I think if I can get in front of that wave to help that industry, I think it'd be beneficial to everybody.
Obviously, you've positioned yourself very well. So you have the technical background of now like utilizing the batteries and reworking them and applying them to testing them. So you understand it all. So I would say you have a leg up on almost. I look at like automotive shops that are like, I want to we'll start working on Teslas, and they're like, well, you got to hire people that like either have a background on that or you have to go get training on it. Like it's totally different. There's nothing at all other than like the control arms and like the body panels. Is like basically all that is comparable between the two of them. So it's like totally different type of car, and so many people scoff at it, but like there's a lot of them, and that's going to be a huge industry, and you now have the expertise for it. So I mean, like I feel like you've positioned, even if you're not making any money or profit right now, I feel like you've positioned yourself extremely well. So
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is the future of hot rodding. It's there's no way around it. I think in car collecting this is not that.
Right.
This is not meant for car collectors. It is meant for guys that want to hot rod and drive their old cool classic cars.
Yeah.
And they want to have the newest, coolest technology with the fastest, most modern driving experience.
Right.
So I think that hopefully we're ahead of the curve, and we're definitely not trying to hurt any feelings or step on toes of car collectors, because I appreciate that aspect of the vehicle as well. I think there's nothing cooler than an old V12 F1 motor, singing around a track. That sounds awesome.
You're not going to take an authentic GT500, Shelby signed car
of course
and take it apart and, a car that's worth millions of dollars.
We'll build a tribute, but not a real deal. So like our GT350 is a tribute car. It's original. It's a fastback that we built to the T spec of a 1965 GT350. It's very little you can tell the difference with the hood shut and the trunk shut. I don't think you can really tell a difference.
Okay.
And other than the wheels are 16-inch replicas of the original 15s.
Okay.
Sorry, 17. Yeah, 17. I'm not sure what I said, but and big Woolwood brakes.
Yep.
But other than that, it's hard to tell the difference.
Okay. Well, Kevin, I really want to thank you for sharing your story and kind of giving me a tour through the shop, and I hope things go well for you.
Most definitely. And if any of your listeners are in the North Texas area, feel free to stop by eMuscle Cars in Denton, Texas.
Okay, and how do we get a hold of you?
So e-musclecars.com is our website. So e-musclecars. You can email us at info@e-musclecars.com. or stop by our shop. And then we have Instagram. We're eMuscleCars on Instagram, and soon coming to Facebook. We will probably be under e-musclecars on Facebook as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again.
Of course. Yep.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app, tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests. Thanks for listening, and good luck.